What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? It's your boy Al. I hope you're doing well. I hope your life is bringing you peace and blessings. Wanted to get with you guys. It's been a minute. I wanted to talk about this Brittney Griner situation. I know I've been chewing the fat, tossing the ball around with some people I know in reference to the situation. So I just figured I'd give you guys my 2 cents on this whole situation. A couple of things I want to address. I want to address her situation, being sentenced to 9 years in prison for cannabis oil. And I want to address some of the issues that people are saying has her there. Having to play ball in Russia because the WNBA doesn't make enough money. WNBA players don't make enough money. And some underlying reasons and what people are missing about why the WNBA players make what they make. But first I want to talk about Brittney and her situation. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison for having a vape pen with cannabis oil, trying to sneak it into the country. She says it was a mistake. They sentenced her to 9 years, and she has been in detention in Russia for a while. There's so much going on with Russia and America, Russia and Ukraine. It's just horrible timing. You'd have to ask yourself, would this be the situation if there was peace amongst these countries? It's an unfortunate situation. First, let's get to the meat of the matter. She did do something illegal. Let's not paint her as Dr. Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Rosa Parks. She did something illegal. She should pay the penalty. I think what people are complaining about is the price. The penalty itself seems a little steep. And there have been people who said, well, if this was a blonde white girl, she would not be dealing with this. And there is, precedent for what people are saying. I know a few years ago, Aubrey Lorber was sentenced to 2 years, 2 months, for trying to smuggle 17 grams of THC into Russia while her family was on vacation. She got 2 months and a hefty fine for 17 grams. And people are saying, hey, this girl in 2019 got 2 months, 17 grams. Why does Brittney get 9 years for her situation for 0.7 grams of THC in a wax vape cartridge? Why does she get so much time? So there is that. People are going to make it a racial issue. But before they're quick to do that, people need to be reminded of other Americans, white Americans who are in prison. Paul Whelan is in prison for 16 years in Russian jail right now. And Mark Fogel, who was sentenced to 14 years, who is a teacher who had prescribed medical marijuana in Russia, was sentenced to 14 years hard labor. This man's 60 years old. He has failing health. And a lot of people are saying, well, if you're going to bring up Brittney's situation, let's talk about these two gentlemen too, because they've been there a while. I think what we need to understand is that Russia is Russia. They don't care if you're white, black, whatever this is. Don't try to make this a situation where Russia's holding on to the black girl and trying to make a point with the black girl. They've got, several Americans there for minute situations. I think what people need to understand is just when it comes to America, Russia, the country is just, they're jerks to Americans. So I think this is less to do about race, less to do about her sex. And this is just to understand that they're jerks. Yeah, the little white girl got off, but historically speaking, man, Russia is just a jerk to everybody. You know what I mean? So I think people need to pump the brakes on, raising fist and taking a knee for Brittney Griner. After all, again, she did enter the country with this stuff illegally. So people need to chill out on that. I will agree that the case for her and the other two Americans is just steep. But again, like I said, it's just because Russians are jerks. The Russian system is a jerk system to America. That jerkness has been heightened due to the war, the efforts, and the problems with Ukraine. America getting involved, threatening to get involved. So now we see the merchant of death, the famous arms merchant who's been captive here in America for quite some time. It's a possibility that this may be to swap. They got somebody high profile enough in Griner that they could use for a swap to get this man free. So that may be the situations. And you just got to understand, man, like we live in a hard world. We live in a hard world where in hard times people play hardball. And it's unfortunate for Brittney. I like her. I think she's a cool people. I like watching her play when I do watch a little bit of WNBA as much as I can tolerate. But you got to understand, man, you got to mind your P's and Q's. And for all the people that are just so upset that she's over there, caught up in this situation, you got to do better. You got to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's in this situation. But I hope that there's a resolution. I'm not one of these people. I see these people. There are a lot of people, predominantly white, of course, predominantly right wing, that are like, let her rot. She did the crime. She did. She should do the time. But y'all know me. I don't think that everything that's legal is moral. I don't think it's moral to have somebody who got caught with this little bit of cannabis, THC, should be spending 9 years in a labor camp. I know Russia they're playing these games, and a lot of people don't care in America. Let's be clear. A lot of people don't care. A lot of white, right-wing Republican males, females do not care about a 6'8" black lesbian who has expressed displeasure in the ways of the country. They do not care about her at all. So you have that element of it. And for that, my advice, don't try to change people's minds about Brittney when you come into that crew. Like, let them make it. They're just going to be who they are. They're not going to change. As far as the WNBA is concerned, because I've seen people saying ridiculous things like, well, she's only over there in Russia playing basketball because WNBA players make so little money. If they made, the right amount of money they should be making, they wouldn't have to go over there in the first place. She wouldn't have to go over there in the first place. But let's pump your brakes on that for a minute, because what people are talking about when you look at the NBA and these wages that are just shooting through the roof, these contracts that are getting crazy. You see the WNBA pay. People are trying to make this a human rights or equality issue. It's not. It's a business issue. When you ask me, should the WNBA players make more money, that's not a question of human rights. It's not a question of human equality among the sexes. That's a P&L spreadsheet question. That's a let me see the books question. Let me see how much money the league is making so we can see if they have enough funds to put into the pockets of the players, right? And we know the WNBA doesn't make 1/100th of the money that the NBA does. So this is a business issue. And Bill Burr has already crushed the WNBA and women on this whole situation, right? He's already talked about how women fail the WNBA because you made the Kardashians billionaires. You take a series where women destroy each other, the Real Housewives series where women just crush each other verbally, and you make these women rich and make that show the most successful show in the history of television where women crush each other, but you won't watch women come together and play basketball and work together to win a game. So women, unless you own that, don't try to put that on people. And he's right. I mean, the most brutal comments I've heard about the WNBA, in my experience, has come from women. Women can't stand to watch it. Women like, I'm not watching that bull crap. It's not basketball. So women got some soul searching to do on that. But to dive a little bit deeper into why the WNBA doesn't make any money or people don't want to watch the WNBA. It's not as cut and dry as people don't want to watch it because they don't want to watch it. There's more to it than that. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Basketball, since the days of Dr. J, Michael Jordan came along after Dr. J, Kobe Bryant, Vince Carter, the whole crew, LeBron James, all the guys now. But since the days of that basketball became really heavily televised, starting in the Dr. J era, the watchability of basketball has heavily been dependent upon its aesthetics. What I mean is this: how beautiful it looks when the players are playing it attributes heavily to why people watch it. Dr. J floating through the air, that's when they decided to start the marketability of basketball, rebranding it with Dr. People say it was Magic and Larry, but it really started before that when the Doctor came from the ABA to the NBA. Watching him glide through the air beautifully, dunking on people. Then Magic and Larry brought the whole element. They're excited. Plus, they brought let's talk about it, a racial element, the white versus black Bird, the white guy who comes in a predominantly black league and is dominating it. I mean, if you watch the series, the documentary on the Lakers and Celtics, white guys in Boston expressing that verbally. They're like, hey, man, I love Bird because there's a white guy dominating the black game. I love it. So we know that was part of the reason why people love Bird. People love Magic because LA Showtime, and then it kind of got predominantly white Celtics, predominantly black Lakers. It kind of got a little racial, but it was still exciting. Two of them all-time great players and other great players on those franchises and in the league at the time. And then here comes Michael, moving and gliding through the air like nobody we've ever seen other than Dr. J. Took the game to new heights, marketability-wise, because of the way he looked. Just gliding, Air Jordan, the logo on the shoe, the leg spread. The aesthetics of Michael Jordan just awed people. Then you have players come along with him, Clyde the Glide Drexler, other guys in the league. Look beautiful playing the game. Then here comes Kobe Bryant, his era. Kobe reminds people of Michael. You have McGrady, you have Vince Carter coming on and doing crazy things. Going back to the Michael days, you had people like Dominique Wilkins, you had Charles Barkley coming along, just beautifying the game. What they could do in the midair with the ball was just phenomenal. They come back to Kobe's era, Vince, McGrady, AI, all these guys, what they could do, beautifying the game. Then here comes LeBron, same thing. What I'm saying is this. I'll repeat this. The watchability of basketball, what makes basketball so watchable is how beautiful the players look doing it. The phenomenal dunks. I remember Derrick Rose in his prime was just, oh my God, before he blew out his knee. John Morant reminds a lot of people of young D Rose, where he just bangs on guys, little guy dunking on people. Steph Curry, with the way he could just handle the ball on a yo-yo and just looks so good, right? And what people have to understand is, in a game that has depended so much on the beauty of it, when it comes to watchability, you can't have all of that or most of that taken away and still want people to watch it. And the brutal honesty is the WNBA doesn't have that watchability factor. The dunking, the beauty of it, the gliding, the hanging in the air, the going up on one side, all of that's completely gone from WNBA. And so when that part of that element of the game is not present in the game of basketball, people won't watch. It has nothing to do with men versus women. And I'll tell you why it has nothing to do with men versus women. Men will watch women's tennis. We watched the Williams sisters. I remember Anna Kournikova. Well, she was watching for different reasons. But we don't have this issue in women's tennis. Women's MMA. Don't have this. When guys are watching MMA, when the women take the octagon, men don't change the channel because the watchability doesn't go down. They're finishing girls just like the guys finish the guys. They're head kicking and knocking each other out just like the guys are doing. As a matter of fact, I just watched a UFC card where the women headline. They were the main event. What was the girl's name? She just won her belt back. Her name escapes me right now. But Juliana Pena, she was defending the title that she won in upset versus, I can't remember the girl's name, but they were the main event. And it was a heck of a fight. And that's not the first time that women have main event that UFC. I've seen Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey. We've seen, what's the other girl's name? The blonde who does the Russian dance. Why are these people's names escaping me right now? I'm always talking about them. But we've seen women headline the UFC cards and men watch. And I would argue you that the most popular sport in Summer Olympics is women's track and field. Women's track and field is probably the most popular sport in Summer Olympics. And men watch. You look at right now what Sydney McLaughlin's doing. Look at what the Jamaicans are doing. You look at what Allison Felix has done. Men don't change the channel when women's track and field come on. Matter of fact, we go running to the TV. And I would even argue you that even in light of what Usain Bolt has done, the most celebrated track and field athlete of all time is probably still FloJo, a woman. So it's not about the WNBA being full of women. That's not what it's about. What it's about is, Amanda Nunes, that's her name, the girl who won her belt back. So, but it's not about it being women. It's about the fact that the watchability changes. When you're watching women's tennis versus men's tennis, the product doesn't change, right? Women's MMA versus men's MMA, the product doesn't change. Women's track and field, men's track and field, the product doesn't change. Obviously, the men are running faster times, but the product isn't changing. Another sport that's not really watchable like that is women's boxing. Now, I'm a boxer, huge boxing fan, historian. But the watchability of women's boxing is not the watchability of men's boxing. The women, they don't knock each other out like the men do. So it's another sport where there's a drop off. And the drop off is because of the watchability factor. And so people have to understand the reason why people don't watch the WNBA is because you can't just remove the aesthetics of the game, the beauty, the watchability, and then think people are going to watch it. That's the reason why women's football won't work. You can't remove the beauty of the NFL, watching guys, move and shuffle and all the things that they can do on the football field. You can't take that out and think that people are still going to watch. The excitability in the sport like basketball is too heavily, and I would argue that basketball is the most dependent upon its aesthetics more than any other sport in the world. Right? So when you take all of the aesthetic or most of the aesthetic out, I mean, every now and then a girl will dunk the basketball barely when she's on a fast break and nobody else is around, and she'll gather herself and dunk, and everybody think that's a big deal, but man, that's not going to cut it. So people need to understand that the watchability of the game is what brings it down. It's not the fact that they're women. And I'll add this, and you may think this is controversial, but I don't mind addressing controversy. I'll tell you another thing that made it not as watchable, particularly for guys. What made it not as watchable for guys was the fact that we were watching. I remember when the WNBA first came out, guys were trying to check it out. I'll tell you what stopped guys from checking it out. Once guys realized they were watching a bunch of women trying to act like guys, flex like guys, having the mannerisms of men, we checked out. Because we wanted to see women in their femininity playing basketball. We don't want to see you trying to be like a dude and bolting your hair like a dude and flexing and talking with a deep voice like a dude. That turned a lot of guys off. I got to be honest with you. Take that for what it is. But to wrap this thing up, I hope Brittney and the other two Americans come home. I hope America works something out. I hope she keeps her sanity in there. I hope that she keeps her sanity. She is a human being. She's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's family member. All of these people are. The gentleman, the teacher who's been there for all these years, his two sisters were like, they were crying when they interviewed them on TV for their brother to come home. One of the things I think that we lose in all of this, we politicize things so much, we forget the humanity of it. And what I don't want us to do is I don't want us to lose our humanity. These are human beings, and they need to be taken care of. That's all I got. Tell me what you guys think. If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section, whether it's on my views on Brittney, whether it's my views on the sport, why it's unwatchable. Until next time, holla at your boy Al. Peace.